parents left me at airport for traveling to Europe with my jobless sister, but I had a big surprise for them. I always believed that if you worked hard, you could eventually earn the love and respect of the people who were supposed to care about you the most. I thought generosity would be appreciated. Sacrifices would be recognized. I thought my parents would see me for who I had become, but I was wrong. Because some people, they don't appreciate anything. And this trip, this once-in-a-lifetime gift I had planned for them, was about to prove it. Growing up, I had always been the overlooked child, the one who didn't demand much, worked hard in silence, and wasn't the golden child. My parents were obsessed with my older brother, Daniel. He was charming. He was social. And even when he failed, they made excuses for him. But me? I had to earn everything. And even then, it was never enough. When Daniel flunked out of college, they paid for him to restart. When he couldn't hold down a job, they let him live at home rent-free. And when I graduated, landed a great job, and started making good money, they barely acknowledged it. No congratulations. No celebration. Just a half-hearted, "Oh, that's nice, honey." It didn't matter that I was the one who had actually worked my way up, because to them, Daniel was still the golden son, and I was just there. But despite all of that, I still wanted to make them happy. I still wanted them to see me. So when I finally got promoted at work and had the chance to take a dream vacation, I didn't just book it for myself. I planned a luxurious, all-expenses-paid trip to Europe, a week of 5-star hotels, private tours, the kind of experience they had always dreamed of, and I made it all about them, because I wanted them to know, even after everything, I still cared. And that was my biggest mistake. The night before the trip, I was buzzing with excitement. The flights were booked. The hotels were confirmed. I had planned every detail to perfection. I drove to my parents' house, ready to surprise them. And when I walked in, I was not prepared for what I saw. My mother was sitting on the couch, chatting happily. Beside her, Daniel, a suitcase by his feet. A suitcase I didn't recognize. I frowned. "Hey, what's going on?" My father turned to me with a smile. "Oh, we didn't tell you? Daniel's coming too." My heart stopped, because this was not part of the plan. I blinked. "You, what?" My mother sighed dramatically. "Come on, honey. You know Daniel has never been to Europe." I clenched my jaw. "Neither have you. This was supposed to be our trip. A special gift for you too." Daniel shrugged. "Well, now it's even more special. A family trip." And the worst part? My parents? They were looking at me like I was the one being unreasonable. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Did you book your own flight?" Daniel grinned. "No. Mom and Dad said you'd take care of it." I felt my stomach drop. I had spent months planning this trip. I had carefully budgeted every penny. And now, they expected me to pay for Daniel too. I turned to my parents. "Mom, Dad, I love you, but this isn't fair. This was my gift to you. I can't just—" My mother cut me off. "Don't be selfish, sweetheart." Selfish. Selfish. Because I didn't want to spend thousands of extra dollars on the brother who had never lifted a finger for anyone but himself. I clenched my fists. And that was the moment something inside me snapped. They thought I would go along with it. That I would sacrifice my plans, just like I always did. That I would give in and make space for Daniel. But this time, they had pushed me too far. I took a deep breath. Then, I smiled. A slow, calm smile. And I said the words that changed everything. "Actually, you're right. This should be a family trip." My mother beamed. Daniel smirked. I picked up his suitcase. Then, I turned around and walked straight out the door. With my bags. Without them. Because this time, I was going alone. And the fallout? It was going to be glorious. I didn't look back as I walked out of the house. I didn't stop when my mother called my name. I didn't hesitate when my father demanded I be reasonable. I didn't flinch when Daniel laughed under his breath like this was some kind of joke, because for the first time in my life, I was done playing their games. By the time I got to my car, my phone was already buzzing. "Mom." I ignored it. Then another call. "Dad." Ignored that one too. I climbed into my car, threw Daniel's suitcase into the trunk, because there was no way I was leaving that behind, and drove off. At the first red light, my phone vibrated again. This time, a text. Mom, honey, come back inside. We can talk about this. Dad, this is childish. Emily. Daniel. Lameo, you're actually mad? I gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Because that was the real problem. They thought this was funny. They thought I was overreacting. They thought I'd given like always. They thought I'd crawl back and apologize. But this time, they were dead wrong. I checked into my hotel near the airport that night, ordering room service and pouring myself a big glass of wine. No drama. No last-minute guilt trips. Just me, my suitcase, and the comforting silence of a room that didn't have Daniel in it. And you know what? I felt amazing. Until the next morning, when I turned my phone back on and saw what they had done. A string of messages flooded in. Mom, we're at the airport. Where are you? Dad, Emily, your flight is boarding. Answer your phone. Mom, we had to buy Daniel's ticket ourselves. That was a huge expense. You really let us down. Daniel, you're lucky I was able to get on the flight. That would have been so messed up if I got left behind. I nearly choked on my coffee. They actually went. They had gone to the airport without me. They had bought Daniel a ticket, and they thought I was still coming. I typed a response. Short, simple, brutal. Me. I hope you all have a great trip. Me. Because I'm not on that plane. A minute later, my phone rang. Mom. Then Dad. Then Daniel. I let them all go to voicemail. Because this time, I wasn't playing their game. I turned my phone off. Then, I finished my coffee. Because you know what they had just done? They had given me the gift of complete freedom, taken the trip off my hands and left me behind, without even realizing I wanted that all along. I grabbed my bags and headed to my gate, because while they were off to their trip in Europe, I was going on my own vacation, to somewhere better. The next morning, I woke up in a gorgeous 5-star resort, listening to the waves crash outside my window. No stress, no expectations, no one guilt-tripping me for daring to enjoy my life. I ordered room service, took myself on a private boat tour, sipped cocktails on the beach, and for the first time ever, I wasn't worried about anyone but me. That was when I turned my phone back on, and the moment I did, I saw their meltdown. Mom, where the hell are you? Dad, we're in the hotel lobby. Are you here? Daniel, you're joking, right? You wouldn't actually ditch us. Mom, Emily, answer your phone. I smirked, because now, they were panicking. I took my time crafting a response. Then, I sent it. Me, I told you. I'm not there. Me, enjoy your trip. I know I will. Blocked. 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 That was the moment I knew. They had never expected me to actually stand up for myself. They had never imagined I would say no. They had never believed I would walk away. They had never considered that maybe, just maybe, I was finally done being treated like an afterthought. But now, they had no choice but to deal with the consequences. Because I wasn't coming back. I spent the next week living my best life. Spa treatments, private dinners, a solo vacation where I wasn't the family's wallet, doormat, or emotional punching bag. And by the time I flew home, I was happier than I had been in years. But I knew the moment I landed, they would try one last time to pull me back in. And this time, I was ready. By the time I landed back home, I felt like a completely different person. I wasn't tense. I wasn't anxious. I wasn't dreading the moment my phone turned back on. Because now, I had nothing to fear. They had gone on their trip without me. I had taken my own vacation. And for the first time ever, they had to deal with the consequences of their actions. But when I finally checked my messages, I nearly laughed out loud. Because their meltdown had only gotten worse. Mom, Emily, this isn't funny anymore. We need to talk. Dad, I cannot believe you actually did this. You embarrassed us. Daniel, dude, you are such a brat. Grow up. Mom, after everything we've done for you, this is how you treat your family? Mom, do you know how hard this trip has been without you here to help? I read that last message twice. Because there it was. The real reason they were upset. Not because they missed me. Not because they realized they had treated me poorly. But because they actually had to take care of themselves. I smirked. Because they were finally experiencing what I had felt for years. No one to pick up the slack. No one to handle their problems. No one to play the role of selfless, invisible helper. They weren't mad that I wasn't there. They were mad that I wasn't there to make their lives easier. And that was their problem, not mine. I sat in my car outside the airport, staring at my phone. And for a moment, I considered responding. Maybe just one message. Something short. Something final. Then, I decided against it. Because I didn't owe them a damn thing. Not a reply, an apology, and a single second of my energy. I put my phone down and drove home, without calling them, explaining myself and feeling guilty. The next morning, I woke up to a new voicemail. From my dad. I hesitated for a second. Then, I hit play, and the second I heard his voice, I rolled my eyes, because I already knew where this was going. Emily, your mother is very upset. She's been crying every day since we got home. Ah, of course. The classic guilt trip. We just don't understand why you're acting like this. You embarrassed the family. Do you have any idea what people are saying? I frowned. What people? We told everyone this was a family trip, and when people asked where you were, we had to lie. I nearly choked. They had to lie? They had to make excuses for my absence, instead of just telling the truth? That they had treated me like garbage, and I finally walked away? Of course, because in their world, they could never be the bad guys. This is your last chance to make things right, Emily. Oh, my last chance? I smirked, because guess what? I wasn't taking it. I deleted the voicemail. Then, I sent one final text. There's nothing to fix. I'm done being treated like I don't matter. I'm done with this family. Have a nice life. Then, I blocked them all. That night, I slept better than I had in years. No stress, no guilt, no expectations. And in the silence, I realized something. I wasn't afraid of losing them anymore, because I had never really had them in the first place. After I blocked them, I expected some peace. No more guilt trips. No more manipulation. No more pretending that I was still part of a family that never truly valued me. And for a little while, it was quiet. Too quiet. Because deep down I knew, people like my family, they don't just let go. They wait. They plot. And when they think you're vulnerable, they strike. It happened 3 weeks later. I had just finished a long day at work, feeling lighter than I had in years. No obligation, no stress, no one demanding my attention. Then, a knock at my door. A loud, impatient knock. And the second I opened it, I felt my stomach drop, because standing there, with her arms crossed and a fake, forced smile on her face, was my mother. I didn't invite her in. I didn't even step aside. I just stared at her. Mom, what are you doing here? She sighed dramatically, as if I were being the difficult one. Emily, I just want to talk. I raised an eyebrow. We already talked. She shook her head. No, you sent a text. That's not talking. I clenched my jaw. Mom, I don't know what you're expecting here. She cut me off. I'm expecting my daughter to stop acting like a child. I felt a cold, sharp anger crawl up my spine. Because that was the real her. The entitlement. The belief that I would always be the obedient one. The inability to take responsibility for anything. I took a deep breath. I'm not acting like a child. She scoffed. Then why are you throwing a tantrum? Why are you cutting off your own family? I clenched my fists. Because I finally see you for who you are. She froze. For the first time, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Not regret, not sadness, but fear. Because she knew. She knew she was losing control. But instead of apologizing, instead of admitting she had taken advantage of me for years, she did what she always did. She tried to make me the villain. Your father is devastated, she said. I didn't respond. She tried again. Daniel has been struggling. He really needs his sister. I stayed silent. Her voice grew desperate. Emily, you're destroying this family. That's when I finally smiled. Because there it was. The truth. I wasn't the one destroying this family. I was just the first one to leave. I took a deep breath. My voice calm, steady, final. Mom, I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped setting myself on fire to keep you all warm. Her face twisted. That's not fair. I tilted my head. Really? Because I think it's the first fair thing I've ever done? She opened her mouth. But this time, I was the one who cut her off. I don't need you to understand. I don't need you to approve. I stepped back. And I don't need you in my life. Then, I shut the door, locked it, and for the first time ever, I felt nothing but peace. She knocked again, and again, and again, until finally, she left. And that was the last time I ever saw my mother, because she never came back, and neither did I. That night, I sat on my couch, sipping a glass of wine, feeling lighter than ever. No guilt, no obligation, no more waiting for them to be better, because they never would be, and I was finally okay with that. After I shut the door on my mother, I thought that was it. No more visits, guilt trips, no more trying to pull me back in. But people like my family, they don't just give up. They don't like losing control. So when guilt didn't work, when anger didn't work, they tried one last thing. And this time, it wasn't just desperate. It was pathetic. A few days later, I got an email. No subject line. No long-winded explanation. Just two simple words. "I'm sorry." From my dad. For a moment, I just stared at it. Because this wasn't how they operated. They didn't apologize. They made excuses. They blamed me. So why now? What were they trying to pull? I debated ignoring it. Then, curiosity got the best of me. I clicked on the email, and the second I did, I rolled my eyes. Because of course, it wasn't an actual apology. "Emily, your mother and I have been talking, and we think it's time we move past this. We love you. We miss you. And we know this has all been a big misunderstanding. We don't even care about what happened with the trip anymore. That's all in the past. It's time to stop this nonsense and come home." I nearly laughed. Because this wasn't an apology. This was a command. They weren't sorry for how they treated me. They weren't sorry for using me. They were just mad that I had left. And they thought they could just undo it. I took a deep breath. Then, I responded. Short. Simple. Final. There's nothing to move past. I'm not coming back. Goodbye. And then, I blocked his email. And that was the last time I ever heard from my father. For the next few weeks, I waited for the next attack. Another visit. Another fake apology. Another pathetic attempt to drag me back. But nothing came. Nothing. Because finally, they knew. They had lost. I had won. And I had never felt lighter. That night, I went out with friends. No checking my phone. No stress about what they needed from me. No more waiting for them to care. Because they never would. And finally, I didn't need them to. After I blocked my father's email, I thought I would feel something. Maybe guilt. Maybe regret. Maybe a tiny part of me would wonder if I had been too harsh. But you know what? I felt nothing. Nothing but relief. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for an apology. I wasn't trying to fix things. I wasn't hoping they'd finally see me. Because I had finally seen them. For who they really were. A few days later, I did something I had been avoiding. I cleaned out my apartment. I threw away old birthday cards. I deleted photos from family trips where I had been miserable. I got rid of anything that reminded me of who I used to be around them. Because I wasn't that person anymore. I wasn't the doormat, the forgotten daughter. I wasn't the one who gave and gave while getting nothing in return. I was Emily, and that was enough. But the real moment of freedom? That happened a week later. I was at a cafe, enjoying a quiet morning, when I saw someone walk in. Someone I hadn't seen since before the trip. Aunt Caroline, my mother's sister. And the second she spotted me, she froze. Then, she smiled. "Emily," she called out, walking toward me. I forced a polite smile. Aunt Caroline. What a surprise. She sat down across from me without asking. And I already knew. I already knew what was coming. She sighed dramatically. "Your parents are really worried about you." I blinked. "Are they?" She nodded. "They don't understand why you're doing this." I tilted my head. "Doing what?" She hesitated. "Cutting them off. Acting like they don't exist." I laughed. Because there it was. Not why did they treat you that way? Not did they ever apologize? Not do you feel like they ever valued you? Just why aren't you playing your role anymore? I leaned forward, lowering my voice. "Aunt Caroline, did they tell you about the trip?" She pursed her lips. "They said there was a misunderstanding." I smirked. "Oh, there was no misunderstanding. They tried to hijack my vacation, then got mad when I didn't let them." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Emily, you know how your parents are." I tilted my head. "Yes, that's exactly why I left." Silence. A long, awkward silence. Then, she sighed. "Don't you miss them?" I thought about it. Then, I smiled. "No." I saw something shift in her expression. Because she understood. Maybe she wouldn't admit it. Maybe she would never say it out loud. But she knew. She knew exactly why I had left. And instead of arguing, She just nodded. "Well," she said, standing up, "I hope you're happy." I smiled again. "I am." And for the first time, I wasn't lying. That was the last time anyone in my family tried to reach me. No more messages. No more letters. No more attempts to drag me back. Because they finally understood. I wasn't coming back. And I had never felt lighter. That night, I sat on my balcony, sipping a glass of wine, staring up at the stars. And I realized, for the first time in my life, I was completely free. And I would never, ever let them take that from me again. There was a time when I thought I'd never escape them, that I would always be the afterthought, that I would always be the one who gave and got nothing in return, that I would always be waiting for them to love me the way I had loved them. But standing on my balcony that night, looking up at the stars, feeling the crisp evening air, sipping my wine, I realized something. I wasn't waiting anymore. Not for an apology, not for closure, not for some magical moment where they finally realized how much they had hurt me, because I didn't need it. The next day, I did something that would have terrified me a year ago. I changed my number. No more blocked calls. No more hidden emails. No more loopholes they could find to contact me. It was over. For real. A few weeks later, I got a message from an old family friend, someone I hadn't spoken to in a while. Lisa. She was always nice. Never in the middle of my family's mess. Just an old connection. And her message? It was short. "Lisa. Hey. Just wanted to check in. I saw your parents the other day. They seemed different. Hope you're doing okay." I stared at it for a long time. Not because it hurt, but because it didn't. Because for the first time ever, I didn't care. I didn't ask what my parents were saying about me. I didn't wonder if they had finally realized they were wrong. I didn't feel the urge to prove my side of the story. Because their opinions, their thoughts, their feelings, none of it mattered anymore. I wasn't part of that world, and I never would be again. I responded to Lisa with a simple message. "Me? I'm great. Hope you're doing well too." And that was it. No follow-up. No curiosity. No looking back. Because I wasn't that person anymore. The one who needed their approval. The one who longed for their validation. The one who felt guilty for wanting a life of her own. That Emily? She was gone. And the person standing in her place? She was finally free. That night, I made a promise to myself. A promise that I would never, ever let someone make me feel like I was less than again. I would never beg for love and shrink myself to make others comfortable. I would never apologize for choosing me. Because I wasn't selfish. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't wrong for walking away from people who never valued me. I was strong. I was free. And for the first time in my life, I was happy.